From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is Fox 59 Tonight.
Well, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us here on Fox 59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Riddle. We appreciate you downloading our new Fox 59 Now Smart TV app. You can find it on Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for finding us there. Make sure you hit the subscribe button on whatever page you are watching this on. On tonight's show, we will be talking about planning in the city, transit, bike lanes, all things that if you've followed any of the reporting I do or know anything about me, that I love talking about transit and planning and the future of the city, logistics, all that. And somebody who I think will appreciate this conversation as much as I will is in our studio. Anna Gremling is the executive director of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. But we're going to learn about what it is that they do as they look at the overall picture of how Indianapolis and Central Indiana is going to grow, work with each other, connect in the future, and become the greatest metropolitan area in the country. Hi, Anna.
Hello. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you for your work of what you do to make our cities and our metro area a great place. A lot of people don't know, but when we talk about all of the expansion that the city has seen, and even growth into the suburbs, you guys are a part of a lot of those conversations, and literally, hence the title, Metropolitan Planning Organization. You guys are at the table at a lot of that stuff.
We are often regarded as a governmental organization you've never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, every time you fill up at the gas pump, you pay a federal gas tax. We get a portion of that back every fiscal year to the tune of about $62 to $65 million. And the Indianapolis Metropolitan Planning Organization gets to distribute that funding for infrastructure projects around the region. When I'm talking about around the region, I'm talking as far north as Cicero and Arcadia, as far south as Franklin, to the west, Danville, and to the east, we have Greenfield. So, right, it's not only Marion County, but it's
Mm-hmm.
all of the surrounding counties as well. So, not only are we involved in the infrastructure side, but we're also trying to plan. We understand roadways don't stop at a jurisdictional boundary or a government line. And the same thing with cycling paths and trails, right? The Monon spans multiple counties now, and the Nickel Plate is under development. So, pretty excited about those projects.
One of the things that you are doing, and we can get into a rabbit hole with the nickel plate, because I'm just saying that still could have been a train line. But it could have been a train line and a bike path. It's more than one thing that it could be. But speaking of bikes, you guys are working on a bike guide. Indianapolis has invested a lot in bike lanes and bike infrastructure. There are bike traffic lights. So the city is very serious about this, and that has created all of these different paths and networks of trails and bike paths. And one of the things you guys are doing is soliciting uh, information from bikers, like what is the best way to get around the city.
We are. So it's the Central Indiana Ride Guide. So it's not only Indianapolis, but it's the surrounding counties as well. And it's a crowdsourced type document.
Mm-hmm.
It's the month of May. So we're hoping everybody's thinking about cycling, and we're asking for resident input on, where are the new bike racks that have been put in over the last year? Are there any new bike lockers? Bike shops that could be resources for cyclists, or park and ride options, right? Where someone can bring their bike to a trail point, park, and then ride to where they need to go. So we're definitely asking for input. Also, to note some of the lower volume, slower speed routes that people can get around on their bicycle.
So if I ride a bike, which I do, haven't done it in a little bit, but I found a way from my neighborhood on the northwest side of Indianapolis, from 38th Street-ish to where um, I wanted to see how far north I could go because there were a bunch of subdivisions. and I wanted to see how far north I could get without having to go ride on a major street. I made it up to 71st Street by zigzagging through all of these subdivisions, a little bit of bike trail, a little bit of bike lane, but mostly it was going through these subdivisions. So that's the kind of thing that I could submit and say, hey, if you live in this area, here's a smooth little route that you could navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I mean, the cities and towns throughout central Indiana are continuing to add side paths and pieces of trails that we always don't know about. So, those as well, we want to make sure get added to the bike map.
So how can people add to said bike map?
So they can go to our website and there's a form that they can just fill out, click and add and help identify. And our team has been going through those comments weekly and trying to update it as those comments come in so it's up to date as possible.
What when it comes to the infrastructure, how do you guys just explain how uh you guys are almost like kind of the uh intermediate, if you will, and tell me if that's not the right word, between um one city and the next that normally might not talk to each other, but if you want to create a bike path to go from Noblesville to Westfield, somebody's got to kind of, work in the middle, right?
Right. So the IMPO, I think, is really founded on four pillars: convene, inform, plan, and fund. So we're often able to convene those conversations and bring people to the table to talk in a regional aspect. We also have a lot of data of who is currently using the system, whether it be bike and pedestrian data or automobile data, right? So we're able to inform those conversations. We are the planning entity, so we're oftentimes putting together what we call active transportation plans for the
Mhm.
bike and ped community and trying to encourage connections of regional paths. And then the last piece is funding, right? We like to not only does the IMPO receive funding, but there are national federal grants that our municipalities and towns can go after. So we kind of fit in a little bit of all of those pillars
Mhm.
to move the infrastructure projects forward.
So how does the planning work? Like how is it a constant? What people don't understand is um, a street is just a street. It's a boundary. 96th Street is what separates Marion County from Hamilton County. But even in the case of bikes, there's bike paths and that go across. How do you guys all like manage all of these? Because, like you said, you're going from Greenwood to Kokomo down near Franklin. Like that's it's a lot of miles.
It is. It is. So typically, we're touching of a lot of our planning documents once every 2 or 3 years, depending on how quickly the land use is changing around it and the need. I will tell you, every year we hold a call for projects, right, to spend some of that 62 to $65 million that we receive.
Hmm.
We typically receive, at least this last time we had held a call for infrastructure projects, nearly $200 million worth of applications
Hmm.
for $65 million.
Hmm.
Now, that's not only bike ped projects, that's intersection projects, roundabout, right? The widening of roadways or the repaving. So that covers a lot of project types, but it
Hmm.
goes to show you the infrastructure demand that we have
Hmm.
within the region.
One of the things that we've covered in the news in recent weeks has been bicyclists wanting more infrastructure to protect them
Mhm.
in a number of different areas, but one in particular is in Indianapolis near the Fountain Square, Fletcher Park area, and they've been doing things like putting up barriers for their tactical urbanism projects. Are those things that people can submit ideas to you guys for as well?
We encourage them to work with their local city or town, and then the city or town moves forward the applications to the IMPO. But the first step would be to have those residents work with their city
Hmm.
or town directly, and then, right, those jurisdictions would
Hmm.
bring forth the applications.
And is this something that, as you said, this should go to the city, but when it comes to you, is it a good idea that to have already tried it and done some, like, hey, we found that this might be a thing, or do they need to come to you before, like with this tactical urbanism project? Now it's a thing and we can see that it's active. So now is it a good time for the city to say, hey, we've been doing this thing, maybe we should expand it? Or do you just want to come with a blank idea and see what happens?
Yeah, I don't know how the city decides what applications they put forth to us. I can tell you there was a tactical urbanism project at 82nd in the Monon, and that was a project that was recently submitted to us and was awarded the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
was
Mm-hmm.
awarded funding. Now, so the city is going to move forward with a bridge, and I can't tell you how much the tactical urbanism project has helped kind of build the case for that. I
Mm-hmm.
know we do use data points, like crash
Mm-hmm.
data, volume of traffic, speed of
Mm-hmm.
traffic to help us determine which projects are
Mm-hmm.
the best. But I don't think those projects hurt at all.
Okay.
I think they definitely help build consensus.
Yes. So when you come to you, I guess where I'm going now is, it helps if you come with a little facts and some data to back up the need, because you've got competing agencies and mayor's offices from around the state saying, "Hey, we want to do this."
Yeah. And we use data. We have an application project process. It's data driven.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, yeah, with only 82 to 80 or 62 to $65 million, right? We need to figure out what projects are going to have the greatest impact in
Mm-hmm.
central Indiana. And so we do use data to determine that.
What's the big picture for MPO? Is there like a grand? What's the master plan? Is there one?
The master plan
Yeah,
for the
for the city, for the region. Like, if when you before you leave, and what's the legacy that MPO wants to have, that we did this? What's the big idea? Is there one?
I think there's been a couple of them, right, as the agency or the organization has evolved.
Mm-hmm.
Originally, the IMPO was part behind the transit vision
Mm-hmm.
of expanding mass transit, increasing the frequency, adding the bus rapid transit lines.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now Indigo is building out, right, the third BRT line
Mm-hmm.
within the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was something the IMPO was originally in partnership with Indigo, behind the
Mm-hmm.
visioning and the business community. We're right at the table, kind of helping determine that that was a long-term transportation strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think you will see other big ideas coming out of the MPO as the region evolves.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about transit for a second?
Certainly.
People always say, or the clips that I feel like make the news are the ones, are the naysayers who say that we don't need transit. But from what I understand, the business community always seems to disagree with that. They want transit.
Correct. I think oftentimes people forget that those that they right, that are serving them the lattes in the morning or that are working in the service industry oftentimes rely on transit.
Mm-hmm.
It's important way of getting around, to have multiple choices when a car breaks down to be able to get to work and school are critically important.
Mm-hmm.
I think always improving the service is important, and investing in mass transit. The IMPO currently sets aside a portion of our funding for mass transit. Normally, it is to help with bus replacements, and
Mm-hmm.
then Indigo decides where those buses are needed. But I think it is always a talking point that's missed when
Mm-hmm.
talking about the transportation infrastructure.
We're the crossroads of America, so I know everybody. The We don't have sidewalks, in at least in Indianapolis. It's hard to find a sidewalk because the city was built. Let me rephrase. At once, this was one of the transit capitals of the world. We had the original Union Station, and now we don't even use it, but that's a whole nother show. But when it comes to transit, like, we got off into this car culture, and that worked for a while. But are you guys seeing data that that's going to continue? That we're always going to be a car culture? Because I just think about younger people. I think about my siblings, who, for me, I got my license as soon as I was 16. I don't see a lot of people doing that as much. I see an increase in people wanting somebody else to do the driving. What's the data say?
Right. So kind of prior to 2020, there was a lot of data out there. The younger generation, right, didn't want to drive, were delaying their driver's license, would rather hop on transit, be on social media, read a book, study for their exam while somebody was taking them to school or work.
Mhm.
Um, right. Post 2020, a lot of transit users are oftentimes, and we're seeing this starting to shift away from this, but don't necessarily or aren't coming and going or reporting to an office 5 days a
Mhm.
week. So
COVID
you're
changed
yep,
everything.
yep. So you're seeing a change there, a little bit lower ridership, but they're starting to slowly see that tick back up. But you still have the younger generation that is not as auto centric. I would argue that you or I may have been when we were growing up, are definitely more apt
Mhm.
to take transit, to use Uber, and to use other forms of transportation than driving and parking.
Uber is expensive.
That it is.
I would love to see more options, even getting to the airport. And I live on the west side. We took we park at the airport now when we fly because it is cheaper than getting an Uber from my house on the northwest side of Indianapolis to the airport on the southwest side of Indianapolis. And so, the thought I always bark back when people say, "Well, just take an Uber." You know how much that cost? Um, what is the city? What is the region saying about an increase in transit options? We've got the red line and the purple line, but as you mentioned, there was a big grand master plan that would have taken some of that originally rail across the Marion County lines into Johnson County and into Hamilton County. Is that ever? Is there an appetite to have anything like that or close to that?
I think it really depends on the community. I think some are still exploring options. Obviously, it's also cost,
Hmm.
right? The
Hmm.
cost of offering something in each community, right? The ideal of linking to Indianapolis. I think everybody is aware. Oftentimes, some of the warehouse jobs and
Hmm.
factory jobs are out in the suburban communities. So there's a couple of workforce connectors that are linking up to the Indigo network to try to get people to those jobs. So I think you're going to see, I would argue, maybe some piecemeal approaches until a bigger vision is established or
Hmm.
wanting to be executed on a
Hmm.
regional level.
Because you can own those factories and warehouse jobs and Amazon, they need land.
They
And
do.
good luck finding that inside the city. So you end up having to go into the suburbs where there is land. And one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is when you go to other cities, the transit crosses the county line or the city line. Ours all stop at the county line. So County Line Road on the south side, Cumberland Road on the east side, 96th Street on the north side, and Raceway Road out on the west side. I think at least for a hot second, no, they discontinued it. There used to be a Indigo bus stop in Johnson County, but now it stops at the Greenwood Park Mall. So our transit system is only in Marion County. And if you've got a job just on the other side of one of those county lines that I talked about, good luck getting there if they don't have one of those circulators, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How are those going? Are those proving themselves like I think that they are?
I don't have the data off the top of my head. I do know some of them are a little bit, I'm going to say cyclical. So, right, Amazon warehouses, you're
Mm-hmm.
definitely seeing an increase. They hire additional workers around Christmas time, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. You're seeing a higher demand. I think there is a pretty steady usage throughout the year, and then you see that kind of increase towards the end of the year,
Mm-hmm.
towards the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Is there the Carmel mayor Jim Brainerd at one time? He was doing a lot of and I know you don't work for Carmel or anything like that, but he was very public with wanting different ideas of what transit could look like in Carmel and in Hamilton County. Are we seeing an appetite like that from any other municipalities anywhere that say, "Hey, we do need to do something"?
There's been some discussion. There's definitely been some discussion. Also, Mayor Brainerd was a visionary. I have not connected with the new mayor Finkham
Hmm.
to see what her thoughts are on transit, but I do know that there are several communities that are just seeing the disconnect between jobs and workers.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so the solutions they come up for those, I'm not certain. I don't
Hmm.
think those have been identified or how to fund those solutions, but I do think there's been some discussion on a larger scale.
Okay, good. Because yeah, there's a bike path there, get you across 96th Street, but be a long ride, and winters are cold here, so do need still some alternatives. You don't see a lot of taxi cabs anymore. You see some, but most things are Uber. And an elected official told me that they think at the time they thought Uber was the future of transit, and I explained to him again the airport conversation. I was like, I don't think so. If I have to pay $60 to get to the airport, and that's because that I guess maybe at that time there just weren't a lot of people driving, and that there weren't driving Ubers, and that's part of the problem.
The demand pricing, it was what gets you every time. There's been
Yes.
times I was like, oh, I'll just take an Uber. And then I go to call it and I'm like, I'll just drive.
Yeah. No, we
Yeah.
won't.
Yeah. No, I didn't realize, yeah, I was like, I don't need to have that alcoholic beverage after all. I'm just going to drive myself.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah. It's because it gets costly.
yeah, it does.
And so with that, the thing that I'm sure that you've probably expressed, or maybe let me not assume. Have you had to explain to people who say, well, we don't need transit and all these bike things and all of that because we're not a Chicago. We're not a New York City. We're not packed on top of each other. You're right. We're not. But we are huge and spread out. Even, from the areas that you talked about. Um, I also think it's weird that you can't um, there's a lack of mass transit getting to the universities. There are some buses that still run, but we as a region are very cut off and spread out. And so, my question in short is, what do you say to people when they say, well, we're not all packed up, we're not a Chicago?
That is true, but we still have to provide options and safe options,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have the transit option, right? Level of service is important there, right? The more frequent the bus comes, the better opportunities folks have to use it, right? If you just miss a bus, not having to wait a half an hour, but maybe 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
right, for the next bus to come and having it be convenient is important. But also, right, we have choice riders who want to ride their bicycle, and
Mm-hmm.
having safe infrastructure and safe areas where they can do so is critically important. And it's about quality of life as well. So, if
Mm-hmm.
we want to continue to, I would argue, recruit and retain residents in central Indiana, we need to offer some of those quality of life amenities
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Anna, if people want to find out more about what you guys do, what you're up to, I'm assuming you guys have lots of public meetings and ask for input. How can people find out more?
Certainly at indiempo.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.
All right, NDMPO, and Anna, we could talk for a long time about all the different things that you guys are working on and planning on. But I'm just going to put this out here. So if this happens, it's on tape. That if I ever run for mayor, which I have no plans to do, we will have transit going from the airport downtown via train. Might not be light rail. We might have to circumvent a law, get that out of the way, but could do heavy rail because there's rail already there. Anyway, you'd be able to get off at the airport, get on the train, go downtown, stop at the Indian Stadium, Lucas Oil, whatever the future of Circle Center Mall is, whatever the future of um, the soccer stadium is, and you can even get up into the burbs, up to the north, and jobs up there, get into Fishers, get into Carmel, and different things. That's Mayor Mayor Riddle's legacy. So I don't know if that'll ever happen, but that's what I'd like to see. Maybe you can help me with that, Anna. Stay tuned for more of what Indie MPO is doing. And if I ever run for mayor, just know, or actually, I should say, if I don't ever run for mayor and somebody takes that exact idea, I said it so you know who actually came up with it. It was me. More of Fox 59 tonight coming up in just a few moments.